In the world of drug addiction and recovery, there is this concept of chasing the dragon. Okay. And this is this idea of where, like, say someone mainlines heroin for the first time, they get an insane high. And then they spend, the rest of their addiction trying to chase that first high, never quite getting there and slowly ruining their life in the process. And I bring this up because a similar sort of thing happens in the productivity space. Obviously, it's not as, extreme, but it can absolutely still destroy your life. Okay. And the way that this works is that a guy has an experience of what he might consider peak productivity. Maybe he had a deadline for some project or something and he really buckled down and he kicked some ass. He was working, noon to, or, morning to night, right? Or maybe he just launched a new project. Maybe he started his new business, or, he got into some new sport or training methodology, and he was just like all in, just like, firing on all cylinders. Or maybe his life put him in a very tough situation, like he has a new kid, his wife is sick, and he needs to like buckle down, and he turns things up to 11, and he's just this man who's just kicking ass. Okay. So basically a guy will have a state like this where he's like on fire getting stuff done. And the problem here is that he then thinks that, oh, this peak state that I just operated at, that should be my new baseline into the future, even if my situation changes. And this is a problem because what they're trying to do is they're trying to take this extreme scenario and make it their new default. And each time they try and they chase it, maybe they get a little bit of results for a little bit of time, but then they fall backward. And what I've seen happen is guys keep reaching for these heights of intensity, and then they just actually start falling more and more. They start getting more burnt out. They start getting more disheartened. They start getting more confused, more frustrated. And all of these sort of things start to, build up inside them. And, they're not helping themselves. They just get, very frustrated with it. There's three things you got to understand in order to start solving this problem. All right. The first thing is that what you can do in terms of your performance with external pressure is very different than what you can do through pure self-motivation. All right. And, here's a very obvious example of this. I don't think anyone could, minus maybe a few outlying freaks, could do special forces training, like Navy SEAL training, by themselves, just in a purely self-motivated way. All right. They would need to have some other thing there kind of putting that pressure and environment on them. That's why they, Navy SEALs, they go through their training together. They have these people who are literally standing around yelling at them in the face, pushing them forward, holding them accountable. There's, they're the guys there doing it with them, trying to, bring them along, and they're building this camaraderie. There's this massive external thing that's pushing them to the next level. Same thing with high level athletes and stuff like that. They've got coaches, they've got, trainers, they got all these people around them to help create this environment that really drives them forward. And so this adds a lot to your ability to execute. But for most of us, we don't have that in our day-to-day life. We don't have that for our goals. And so we're relying on self-motivation, which really means we need to lower our expectations. Because, it's just that social part of the brain, it can't be activated all the time. And in many cases, it's completely unreasonable to expect you to be able to apply that kind of pressure on yourself to all the areas of your life that you might want to at any given time. But if you are looking for an environment to help with this, then book a free call with us and learn more about our Frontline Man program. We'd love to give you that extra boost in our specialized masculine development environment. But back to the topic at hand here, okay? So that's the first thing is that, your environment matters, okay? And you can't just always control that perfectly. The second thing you got to understand is that what you can do for a sprint isn't what you can do for a marathon. This is obvious in the running world. Your 100-meter sprint time is not going to be the pace that you're going to be able to keep up, for even 200 meters, let alone a marathon. So same thing holds true with our productivity. What you can do for a short period before a deadline is not what you can do as your default way of life. And the final piece here is that you have to realize that your emotions, they're not like an idiot, right? Your emotions, they have a human intelligence to them. And they know when you could have acceptable progress and meaningful pleasure. Okay, so like you can't just create some kind of false sense of urgency and force it upon yourself and have your emotions just accept it. Basically, your emotions are going to fight back and be like, yo, we don't actually need to push this hard. And this is typically where things start to break down for guys who are grinding really hard, is that their emotions are just like, we could just go slower. I could just tune out. And often if we don't even entertain that conversation with ourselves, it just ends up being of this uncontrolled, unconscious kind of, fallout that then happens. So how do we really fix this? How do we stop chasing after something that's not really possible for us? Well, the fundamental key is that instead of, like, if you want to optimize your performance, you have to optimize your performance over time. And in order to do that, you have to actually optimize for alignment with your intellect and your emotions. All right. You need to have both your head and your heart and even your body all on the same page, functioning well. And the intellect, it gets greedy. It's like, I'm going to make the emotions suffer. We're just going to be a suffering machine. I'm going to make the body just work like a dog. And it's like, that doesn't work. Okay. Like, all the parts need to feel like they're winning. And if you can do that and you can get over the ego hit of accepting, like, here's my actual sustainable output, and you work toward that, then what you're going to find is that you're going to find your cruising pace. And you're going to be able to make incredible progress with less effort, higher energy, and generally much more life satisfaction. So if you want a full system designed to make the conquering of your goals smooth and effortless, then book a call with us and we'll tell you about how our Frontline Man program can work for you. So just click the link in the description. We'd love to chat with you. See you in the next one.